Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs of Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and looking in my art journal. So get comfy, let's get crafty. This is the Mission Inspiration July main mission prompt. There are 5 words, 8 steps or ingredients or plans of action, and I'm going to work on this prompt today. So I've printed out the prompt card and I have pulled out a piece of mixed media paper. I'm going to focus on the word rise because that's the first one that grabbed my fancy when I saw the prompt. So I have a piece of mixed media paper here that is about 8.5 by 5.5 inches. And the first step is to glue strips of newspaper or magazine. I have gone through my magazines and pulled out all of the pieces or all the pages that have blue on them and cut them into 1 or 2 inch tall strips in varying lengths because I had to cut out the words and the other things that were on the page. And I am going to adhere them to my background with gel medium. Sorry, not gel medium, matte medium. It is a liquid matte medium. Often when I'm using magazine pages, I tear the edges. But this time I wanted kind of a more straight edge look. It's going to end up looking a little bit, I don't know, plank floor. But I have lots of different shades of blue, some with clouds, some without clouds, and that serves my purpose just fine. I'm just continuing to add the strips, trying to make sure that I don't have any 2 seams that are lined up exactly. I want there to be some variation. I don't want it to be the thing that you look at because it's the background. So I want to make sure that there's no 2 seams that are lined up just right. Also, I am overlapping a little bit when I need to. I am tearing pages off the edge when I need to. The magazine paper is sticking to my surface because the glue, the adhesive, is going off the ends of my page, and this one I realized was about to line up just right, so I undid it and then added another little piece on the edge, and then we're going to put the last piece down on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and pick this up and clean up my work surface and heat set that with my heat gun. Then I'm going to use my Tim Holtz long scissors to trim off the edges. I did get a little bit aggressive on one side and had to pull out my trimmer to fix the gouge I cut in the one side of the page. But yeah, I edited that out because, well, it was finicky. And cutting paper is not necessarily the funnest part of the video that you want to watch. But anyways, once I had it all trimmed down and I have my boo-boo cleaned up, I am going to go ahead and move on to step 2, which is cover with a thin wash of color. Thin wash means that it should be, in my mind, means that it should be transparent. So I am going to grab this Picket Fence Distress acrylic paint. I'm going to get my paintbrush wet. I'm going to add a thin coat of this watered down white acrylic paint. I could have used gesso as well, but the paint works. And it's just going to knock that blue into the background a little bit. It will not cover up the differentiation of the blues. It will not hide the clouds. And I decided I wanted a little bit more, so I put some acrylic paint straight on my page and with a very wet paintbrush went over it again, and that had more of the effect that I wanted. When it's dry, you will still be able to see the blue stripes. You'll still be able to tell that it is blue. I did take my microfiber rag and dab it off a little bit because that adds some yummy texture. So step number 3 is to add some random stamping. Now, my random stamping is probably not as random as random. I pulled out 2 old stamp sets, one with clouds, one with birds, and I'm going to stamp some clouds and birds all over my page with black archival ink. I'm just using stamp blocks, and the randomness comes into I'm not paying attention to where I stamp the images. I'm just going to put a bunch of clouds on. There's 3 different kinds of clouds. I'm not making sure that the stamping is nice, like the edges aren't going all down. Also, the page is kind of slick now, so I'm kind of sliding on the background a little bit. Don't care. Don't care. I am keeping the stamping to more of the top half or 2/3 of the page because I have plans for the bottom half already. Once I have this clouds stamped on, I'm going to grab that bird stamp and ink it up. This is just kind of a silhouette of a flock of birds flying by, and that also works kind of perfect for the idea I had for this page. When I decided, when I saw the prompt and I saw the words, rise was the first one that jumped out to me. And my first instinct was hot air balloons. That was the first thing that came to mind. I shouldn't say instinct. That was the first thought that came to mind, was hot air balloons. And so I started looking at hot air balloons, and then I remembered a poem, which is another step. So now that we have our random stamping done, it says to make marks with your fingers. I don't know. I don't know about this step. I have no problem getting my fingers dirty, but yeah. So I just pulled out that white paint again, got my fingers a little bit painty, and added it to the interiors of some of the clouds. It's, it's not noticeable. It's not supposed to be. It's just a step in the process. It does add texture to the background, does add interest. It does get covered up. All right, the next step is to add color through a stencil. And this is where I will be working on that bottom third of my page. This is a tree stamp from the Crafter's Workshop. I've had it in my stash so long that it doesn't come clean anymore. And some of the fidgety pieces have broken off. I'm going to put some, this is Fern Green archival ink. I'm going to use this foam blending sponge to push the ink through the stencil. And as I get, about that far done, I'm like, ew, I don't like the green. I don't like the green. I thought I would like the green. I don't like the green. I love the greens. I love all the greens, but not right there. So I aligned the stencil again mostly and pulled out my potting soil archival ink and went over that corner where where I had already put the green ink on. And I'm just going to continue to make these tree branches across the bottom of the page. I think the reason I didn't like the green is because it's not leaves, they're branches. And branches aren't green, they're brownish, sometimes grayish, sometimes tannish, but they're not usually green. So I did go ahead and get some tree branches across the bottom of the page. I like how that goes. The next thing is to add a focal image. So I did find a hot air balloon. I thought I had an ephemera that was a hot air balloon. Turns out I either used it or gave it away or something. So this is just a picture I found on the internet that I downloaded, and it's one of those free public domain images. I'm going to adhere this to my art journal page with that liquid medium. I'm using a matte medium today. I don't want things to be shiny or sticky. And I put a lot on that balloon, and you can tell because it's curling up. Then I'm going to add some over the top. I chose this balloon because it was not the same color as my background, but also I liked the shading that was already in the balloon, so I wasn't going to feel like I needed to add any more dimension to that. Now, the next step says to add a poetry quote or phrase. So once I had decided to use that hot air balloon, the next thing I did was remember this poem by Maya Angelou. It's called And Still I Rise. So I have printed this poem in small print in its entirety on a piece of printable rice paper. And I'm using a wet brush to tear the edges to kind of help push them into the background a little bit more than a clean edge page, like a cut edge page. I'm going to add some adhesive to my art journal page. That's the word, art journal page. And it will overlap that balloon a little bit. It does dry back some, but you can still see the rice paper over the top of the balloon, but I don't care. I'm good with it. So I'm just going to kind of arrange this so that it takes up the entirety of that right-hand side, or the majority of the right-hand side. I am also adding adhesive over the top of it. It kind of pushes those edges back a little bit. It also keeps it from peeling off if I didn't get any or enough adhesive behind it. Once I have this all glued down and my edges, I'm sure my edges are stuck down, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that as well. Use my heat tool to dry that adhesive. I could have used a collage glue stick, but I went with the gel medium today, or the liquid medium today. Okay, so the next step in our card is actually the last step. It's create a border or a frame. And I did not want to draw anything around my page. You can see I'm thinking. I decided to just go ahead and grab that black archival ink and the foam blending brush and use the ink to create that frame or border. Because it is darker than the rest of the page, it definitely creates a frame look. It gives your eyes and your brain an idea of where to focus. So first you see the balloon, and then you see the birds and the clouds and the trees, and then you see, you know, the poetry, and it all comes together, and it's all inside that frame. So I am going to sign and date my page. I'm just dating it July. I don't usually put the day on, just the month and the year. And then I need to add my recipe card to the back so that I can remember what I did to this page. So I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on the back of this, just real quick with my ATG. Sometimes I do 2 lines. If I really got that paper wet, then I use 4. I go around all 4 edges, and that's just because wet paper warps. And as it dries, it curves a little bit, and I didn't want the recipe card to peel off. And now that I have that taped down, I can pull out my hole punch and punch a hole or punch holes in my art journal page so that it will fit into my binder. And my July 2023 mid-month mini mission is complete. I have, since the first time I heard this poem, really appreciated it and felt like I could relate to that. So I encourage you to check that out. Look it up. It's a good poem. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I have a couple other videos here I think you would like. I have a subscribe button. If you haven't already, subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. Let YouTube know you like the channel, like the video, all the things. And have a really fabulous day.